Watch this scene. Watch it carefully.
All right, mic check 1 2. What does it look like? Is it getting pretty good? Yeah, good stuff. All right, the microphone is really low. All right, can you give me a mic test?
Hello. Do I have to? I can just talk it. Can I talk at this distance?
Yeah, just talk to that
Oh,
distance.
hey, what's up? What's happening? It's me. I'm here. Cybersecurity.
It's me. I'm here.
I don't talk that low. Do you want me to actually like talk at the volume I'm going to be talking at?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, it's me. I'm gonna give this pitch. This is the volume I talk at normally.
All right, cool.
This is a mic test.
All right, I think we're good.
I am socially awkward.
You can't hear it? Well, I'm adjusting it. So keep on and let me know, because it's about a 30-second delay. All right, cool. What's going on, everybody? Everyone's like, hey.
Sorry, it's been a long day.
I'm sure. It's been a long day for me as well. That's why I drank that Rockstar. 0 sugar, 0 calories, still kill ya. My name is Omar Kimbaya, and I'm the organizer here at the CyberDef Dojo, and I'm very thankful to have all of you here. So let's give a round of applause for you guys arriving today and enjoying some cybersecurity talks. And thank you everyone who's watching on YouTube. You can find us at youtube.com/ I don't have over 100 followers, so I can't really have / CyberDef Dojo. But for all of you who are not watching on YouTube, there are sandwiches. There are sandwiches still in this conference room, plus water and soda. If you like pickles, feel free to tickle them. We're gonna have Chris Garrett's come in. This is a really tough crowd. Some jokes land, some just die. Chris Garrett's gonna be coming in soon. He's gonna talk about PowerShell and hunting on the endpoint, which I'm sure all of you guys are pretty excited for. Can I get a heck yeah? I'm excited about this.
Heck yeah, I'm excited.
Awesome. Tickle the pickle. So before we get started, I do want to announce that the Security Engagement Series is good to go. And if you guys don't know what that is, that's something that we've been working on at the CyberDef Dojo, which is going to be a quarterly event that we have every single year. It's going to start, it's going to start in October, and it'll be on October 18th from 6 to 9. And we're going to have Tom Irvin of the FBI come down and talk about ransomware. He's also going to show us how ransomware works, and he's literally going to own a box right in front of everyone. So it'll be a very visceral experience. Then we're going to have a panel discussion with cybersecurity experts talking about best practices and how best to avoid these types of things. So it's a free event. There will be light refreshments from Costco. So thank you, Costco, for existing. And all of you guys are invited. So I will be sending out that information for all of you to sign up for. It'll be on Eventbrite, and I really hope you guys can come out to it. So October 18th, 6 to 9 o'clock. So please save the date. Additionally, we have...
It's okay. We met a week ago. Bria Woods.
We have Miss Woods here with us, and she is looking for somebody to help her on her startup, specifically in cybersecurity. So we met last week. She was looking for somebody for about a month or so. She just didn't know a lot of things about security. So I said, like, hey, you should come here, talk to any of the people in here. It'll give you a better idea of what you're looking for, and maybe someone that might be able to help her out in the future. So she's going to give us like a 5-minute pitch. Then we're going to have a Q&A afterwards, and then we're going to have Chris Garrett's of InfoSight to talk about PowerShell foo. Y'all excited?
Yeah.
So please carry on that excitement to Miss Woods. Both times were fake. I knew her name. Whatcha? I'm so talented at this stuff. All right, guys, please give her a round of applause.
Thank you. Good evening. We break up, we start combing through 6th Street, and then all of a sudden we just kind of have this sobering, heart-sinking moment that we don't know where he is, we don't know if he's safe, we don't know if he made it back to the hotel, and we were quite frankly kind of panicked. Eventually we thought, okay, let's just go back to the hotel, see if he's there somehow, and somehow, by some grace of some deity, he was back in the hotel, completely passed out. These started repeating themselves too many times, and safety became an afterthought, and even though we were left to whoever is the most aware and sober at the end of the night. We know that there's a lot of alcohol and substance abuse on college campuses, and there can be a lot of social tension. There are a lot of weak ties with the people that you go to school with, but yet you call these people your best friends, and you do care about them to some level. We also live in a world where safety, we understand that there's a lot of, there's a major concern about rape and sexual assault on college campuses. And so we know that 1 in 5 women and 1 in 13 men will be sexually assaulted at some point in their lives, and this risk is definitely heightened during the college years. And that got me thinking, because if you're in a situation where you're being sexually assaulted, your safety has been broken down significantly. And so during our research, we were trying to figure out how can we address this issue. And we kept hitting a wall, and someone finally told us, I think you would have more success if you started selling the solution instead of the problem. And so that rabbit's hole led us to the category of safety apps. So we started doing some research, looking at our competitive market, and we found that there's not really a lot out there that really focuses on helping students get home safely after a night out. And so that's where Glow comes in. We want to automate the process where you can alert your friends when you've made it home safely after a fun night out. And here's how it works. Side note, we are now finally in the coding stage. And so all of these screenshots that you're about to see have since changed. This is just from the wireframe that I made a couple weeks back. So anyway, the first step, when you open up the app, you create a posse or a group of friends that you're going out with, and then you invite them to an outing. And then you just put in the address of whatever bar or club or frat house or whatever that you're going to. And then you select your home base, so where do you want to be by the end of the night? Because for Glow, getting home safely for us is a time and a place. So this could be your dorm room, this could be your apartment, this could be your best friend's place, whatever you consider to be a safe place. And then you set a curfew for the group. So let's say I'm going out with 2 of my buddies, and I say I want all of us to check on each other at 2 a.m. I want all of us to be home safe by 2 a.m. And then you click done, you go out, you have a good time, and if you're not within 20 feet of your home base 5 minutes before your curfew, first the user will get a notification saying, hey, are you okay? And the user has 3 distress options. They can either call 911, notify people in their group, or say, it's okay, I'm fine. And if they don't respond at all in that 5-minute window, or they do actually send a distress call to people in their group, then everyone in the group will get a notification saying, hey, your friend is not okay, do you want to check on them? And in situations where someone just feels, they're not supposed to be home yet, but they just feel a general sense of discomfort, or they feel like their safety is being compromised, then they can press a distress button in the app so that everyone in their group knows, hey, I'm at the bar, this guy doesn't get the picture, that I'm not going home with him, can you help me? That kind of thing. Not that all guys are creepy. And so we really haven't invented anything new here. We're just using GPS technology and push notifications to make the process of checking on your friends a lot easier and simpler. So the business model, it says provisional because this seems to be changing every time I interview someone. whether it be users or universities. But right now what we're looking at is the user and the customer being two different groups. So the users, we're focusing on college students aged 18 to 25, give them a few years to change their major a couple times, but selling it to universities on an annual subscription basis. So that if you're a college student and your university has purchased the app for all of their students, then college students can use it for free for life. And so far, the startup costs that we have accrued are in the neighborhood of $5,000. This is money that we've already spent and anticipate on spending in the next couple months. Revenue streams, we want to sell the app in the App Store for people who are not in college so they can still use it, and partnering with universities. And we also want to throw a launch party because we figured what better way to show people how to party safely than to put them in that scenario. And then at the launch party, we would sell table space for vendors who want to be part of the launch party. So we've been working on Glow for about almost 2 months now. And through a lot of the interviews and the market research that we've done, we've realized that there are people outside of college campuses that could really benefit from this. And so down the line, in addition to college students, we also want to market this to tourists. Including students who might be studying abroad, spring breakers, people who are just traveling in general. And also looking at offering this to military groups, which is not something that I thought of in the beginning, but I've heard that suggestion many times, and also city officials. Ultimately, here at the Glow team, we believe that safety is power, and we want to move the world from an unpredictable place where safety is sometimes left up to chance to a place where we can instill accountability and responsibility in a culture that usually rejects it. And even if we only save one person from a compromised situation, to us, that is all in a day's work. So, thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and do a couple minutes Q&A.
So, what's the idea behind the name?
It just kind of came up. I did 3-day startup in June, and one of the guys in my team just said that. He just said it, and I was like, "What did you just say?" And I was like, "Oh my god!" And we just loved it. And so far, it has gotten a really good traction. So that's where it came from. Just like a really innovative guy. Yeah.
So you mentioned like partnering with universities. What universities have you talked to, and what has their feedback been?
Yeah, so far I've talked to Trinity University, which doesn't really count because I just graduated from there. But I've talked to a bunch of different people in the faculty. So our dean is really on board. Our Greek life coordinator is really on board, and he invited me to the first Greek Council meeting coming up in a few weeks, and said that if the app is ready to go, then he would be willing to buy some downloads so that Greek life can use it. I've also met with our police chief at Trinity, who's really on board, and so he said that in terms of working that into the school's budget, that ultimately has to go through the higher ups, but he's interested. And then I also had a meeting with St. Edward's University in Austin, and they expressed interest, but that was the first time anyone had asked me about cybersecurity. And I'm like a fish out of water twice removed. So not only am I not a tech person, but I also don't understand a lot of things that come with that. So since we started working on Glow, I have since found, put together a team of people who can manage more of that side. However, the cybersecurity end of it is not really covered in a way that I think is satisfactory. So I'm still looking for someone who can not only help me understand what kind of cybersecurity needs to be happening with Glow, but can also manage it. But yeah, so I'm hoping to talk to more universities once the app is actually built and I have something I can show them. But so far, I've just talked with Trinity and St. Edward's University.
So 2 more questions. We've got one over there.
How do you plan to handle dead battery or powered off device scenarios?
Yeah, so the design that we've come up with is, I don't know, have you guys heard of, I think it's called 360 Life or Life 360 or something like that. And it's also in the safety app realm. And what they do is when next to someone's name, you can see how much battery life they have left. And so we wanted to incorporate something like that, where you can see what either maybe it'll just send a notification to your friend saying, hey, my battery's on 5%, this is my last location, or you can constantly see what their battery life is at. I'm not sure if my coder can put that in version 1.0. But and then in terms of like if it falls in water or it gets turned off, what we had talked about was finding a way, like if the phone recognizes that it's losing signal, to also be able to say like, hey, I'm losing signal, here's my last known location. Because we can't charge your phone for you, we can't pull it out of water, but what we're committing to do is make sure your friends are informed about where you are.
Have you looked at existing PERS systems or mobile PERS? I have a background in private security.
Okay.
So basically you're talking about panic buttons. So what your product is essentially kind of augmenting the framework for like a panic button.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody's in a situation and has not checked in time,
Mm-hmm.
it notifies everybody.
Yeah.
My company kind of already does this, just not digitally and not in a fancy app.
Okay.
Or the other person checking in?
Yeah.
Yeah. I am not sure what PERS is, but if you'd like to talk afterwards,
Okay.
I would love to talk to you afterwards. Yes.
Hypothetical situation, what if I'm some asshole at a bar, I take advantage of a girl, and I have her phone on me at the time that the alert's supposed to go off, and I accept I'm here, or I'm being delayed.
We also, okay, so that's, so the workaround for that, we were ideating about this a couple weeks ago, creating a PIN system. So having your regular PIN number and a distress PIN. So in order to actually make a change, only like I'm the only one that knows my PIN number. So if you try to make a change, then I have to put in the PIN number. And even if you force me to do it, I can put in the distress PIN, which will silently notify my friends that it's an emergency, like I'm not safe at all. So because we don't want to put the person in a situation where like their phone is blaring and it's clear that this person is being called out, we don't want to cause unnecessary harm to the user already. So that's what we're working on right now.
Okay. All right. One more. Go for it.
If someone does issue a distress call to the rest of the posse,
Mm-hmm.
will it give you like turn-by-turn directions to get to them, or just give you an address or like a dot on a map that they can get there?
That is something I need to clarify with my coder in terms of how he's using maps, because I don't know. The way I envisioned it is to show you, like, drop a pin where they are, and then you can see and navigate to that location. But I'm not sure, like, in terms of the tech speak of how that's working, I'm not sure right now.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Bria, for coming
you.
by.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for participating and giving your great questions. Let's please give a round of applause. So we did get some feedback from people that were on the chat on our live stream,
Mm-hmm.
and I have an email address if someone needs to email, because they can help you out.
Oh my gosh, That is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, you two.
Yay.
Hashtag sponsor the CyberDef Dojo. Hashtag bid for money. All right, cool. So next up, we're gonna get Chris Garrett's up here. I'm gonna get him set up. But feel free if you guys want some more refreshments, they're over there. If you wanna, if you're stayed, comfortable where you are, that's really up to you. I can't decide if you're comfortable or not. What's going on, man? I've never met before.
Not officially.
No, not like Slack meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well.
How many people are online?
We got. If I multiply by 1,000, will be more impressive. It's
Where
fine.
do I need to be?
Like right around here, because wherever's gonna be is gonna be right behind you, and you don't want like your text in your face. Also, I'll be following along on my PowerShell, so that's what people are gonna be able to see. So I'll be bouncing back and forth between viewing you and also viewing the PowerShell terminal. Did you upgrade to Anniversary Edition?
Anniversary edition.
Yeah. Windows
Yeah,
10?
I did. It just got me my new. It reset all my settings.
Nice. That's the best way to do it. I mean, I'm glad Windows does that to me, because Microsoft knows what's best for me.
They do. And then they wanted me to enable Cortana so that they can record everything I say.
I tried using that at work. I was like, hey, Cortana, tell me a joke. It's like, sorry, there's not enough bandwidth here to do that.
Is there a plugin?
Oh, you can plug it up here. Our network is a joke. Savage.
Are these things something?
That's the HDMI cord you might want to use. Or is there another one there? Oh yeah, the USB you don't have to worry about. And also, if you want me to, I can also raise this so it's a little more comfortable for you.
Yeah, that might help.
Yeah, we'll do that.
It's cooler than anything I have.
Right? Hashtag startups.
Is there a trick to this thing? So my name's Chris Garrett. I'm going to be talking about hunting on the endpoint. This is a talk that I gave at B-Sides Las Vegas last week. And just to get started, I want to just gauge the audience on a technical level, because I like to situate my tone with that. So who here has heard of threat hunting or hunting, anything like that? If you've ever been called by a sales guy in the security world, you probably have heard it, because it's all the rage. How many of you are actual hackers or pen testers, or have done stuff with Metasploit? Okay. Anybody on the defensive side? Forensics, incident response. Cool. All right, so looks like we have some folks that any IT experience whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. Anybody completely devoid of IT experience? Laura?
No one besides your
She's a
girlfriend and your
therapist.
sales guy.
Cool. So this talk was given there. I chose B-Sides Las Vegas because it's a technical audience. So this is a technical brief on a project that we've been working on at InfoSite. So InfoSite's our company startup in geekdom. So if you've ever been on the 7th floor, you've probably seen some of our guys around. The genesis of this project is called PS Hunt. It's a open source project for PowerShell. Lets you hunt on endpoints. It lets you scan workstation servers and find, whatever's running on those systems, anything that's triggered to run on those systems, and try to find any manipulation of those systems. So the idea is that we should be able to scan workstations and servers to be able to find out if they are hacked or not, if they have malicious software on them, if someone's on there that shouldn't be on there. And so this framework, the PS Hunt framework or module for PowerShell, is really started out as the prototype for InfoSite. So we don't use this anymore. We had actually, when our company got funded, we decided to go away from PowerShell, away from .NET, go with fully compiled C, so we can go cross-platform, Linux, Mac, Windows, whatever. But this is where our company got to start from. And my background really came out of the Air Force, where we used PowerShell quite a bit as well. So a lot of this stuff was built there. My background, so I helped establish and lead the enterprise hunt team for the Air Force. We called it Defensive Counter Cyber. So the team was really designed to go out and find compromises on the Air Force's network. We had a sophisticated monitoring mission. I was doing incident response for the Air Force CERT for several years. And we would respond to threats all the time. But the problem we found was, and people have now come to realize, every time we found a compromise, there was always a dwell time. There was always a certain amount of time that they had been there before we found them. And that time was scarily long. And so the idea is, we have to assume that we're compromised right now, that someone's on our network that shouldn't be, because we're under attack all the time. Someone's getting through, and we may not be detecting all of it. And that's true across the board. If you've seen the statistics, the average right now, if you look at any industry report, from Mandiant's reports to Verizon's reports, the industry is getting crushed by hackers worldwide, and the average time it takes to actually find a breach in your system, once you find it, it's about 205 days. The industry reports go anywhere from between 170 to about 256, the one I see quoted a lot. But that's how long there's malicious people are in your network reading your email. If you think about that, if you are running a business, if you are doing financial transactions, if you're even emailing your friends, there's people going to be looking at that, watching it, collecting it for 6 months before your security team finds it. And so hunting and threat hunting is really, it's a very simple concept. And we'll go through that. The idea for it is, what is hunt? It's a proactive search for threats inside your network. It's a network that you control. It's not running out and going and hacking back. It's not going to find them in Russia and dropping out of an airplane. It's looking inside your own network to find out who's in your network. Once you identify them, then you go into an incident response mode and you try to clean it up to try to kick them out. But the idea is that you may be monitoring your perimeter of your network. You may be putting up the biggest wall in the world, but people are still getting in. So you need to be able to look inside. Commonly in security, network security, we call the paradigm of network security we've been doing for 20 years. We rely on a firewall. We rely on a really, really strong perimeter in the enterprise. And then we use standard antivirus. The same antivirus that you have at home is about as good as the enterprise software that people put on their systems as well. So AV really hasn't progressed. It lets things through. We know that now. That's why there's so much investment in security. But most enterprise security has been traditionally all about the perimeter. So we call most network security is an M&M. It's got a hard candy shell, soft gooey center. So as long as you can get in, you can move around. Anybody that does pen testing knows it's really easy once you're in. You just steal someone's credentials and act like them. So again, the reason for this is many are breached and don't know it. That's why we started InfoSight. That's why I started this company. It was me and Russ Morris, the co-founder. We said people are breached out there. We're doing hunt on the government networks, but every time we see a breach out there, we see it on a commercial organization, a retail organization. We said we couldn't do anything about that because we're the government, right? And we can't just show up to Target and say we're from the government and we're here to help. So we had to get out. We had to create a commercial company to be able to do that. We wanted to build a product that makes it easier to go out and do this, go out and find breaches that people don't know about. So we've done that. We've built a product and we're going out and selling it, but it's really, really competitive. We still want to help people, and we want to do it on a scale that our company can't do it yet. And so that's why we open source PS Hunt, which was our prototype software. It's still pretty good. It's free. It allows you to scan workstations and servers that are Windows-based and find some of these breaches that people don't know about. So a lot of people ask, what's the difference between Hunt today and how it's been talked about and Response? Really, there isn't too much of a difference from a technical point of view. The idea is that you're being very proactive. You're trying to find something that you don't know is there. In a response situation, you have a breadcrumb trail and you know where to go. That's ground zero right here. This is where I detected something. Let's start here and let's move out. In a hunt situation, you're casting a very wide net and you're trying to find something on your network. And if you have 5,000, 10,000 systems, that becomes very difficult. So you have to be very scalable, and you have to be able to reduce the complexity so that you don't get killed just looking for one thing or looking on one box. There is a principle of diminishing returns for this. A lot of people that I've seen, I go out and see people's hunt practices that they're standing up. A lot of them are new. Almost no one out there has done it for longer than a year or two, unless they're coming out of a secret, squirrel organization. They're spending too long on systems. They're not scalable enough. And the other thing is, the model today is look for something that I know might be out there. Look for this tool that hit another organization. If I'm a bank and another bank gets hit by some kind of threat, go look for that same thing that they got on. That's called a focused hunt, or what's called an IOC hunt, indicator of compromise. It's a specific indicator from another breach that you're going to go look for that thing. The problem is that so many people are trying to attack us right now. If you're just looking for the thing that hit them, you may not be finding the thing that's on your network. So we're going to do a different methodology. Some of the tools that are in the tool bag of a hunter. Traditionally, we always do network side. We usually separate network and endpoint. So a hunter really needs to have a little bit of everything. From network solutions to endpoint solutions. Network solutions are going to be those things that collect from your proxy to your firewall and be able to analyze what's going in and out of your network. Endpoint solutions are going to say what's happening on the workstations and servers in my environment. Data-centric is what's currently being done in big enterprise. So if you ever go online and look at threat hunting and what's being served right now, in traditional security operations in a big company, everybody funnels all their data into one big bucket, whether it's Splunk or Dupe or Elasticsearch. These are just big-ass databases with all of your information that's being collected. So once it's all collected in that big bucket, search in it and try to see if you find anything that your signatures didn't find. Because they're constantly alerting you to things that happen, but there's more data going in there that's being alerted against. So when most people talk about hunt in a big enterprise, they're talking about searching inside of a big bucket of data to try to find out if anybody got through. For the rest of us, especially if you're hunting at home on your own system, you don't trust your antivirus. If you're using PS Hunt at home in a small network that doesn't have a big bucket full of all your data, most organizations that we deal with are between the 500 and 5,000 employee range, and at that organizational size, they don't have retention of the data that they need to do hunt in a data-centric way. Usually their logs only go back up 3 days. Most of the time their logs aren't even turned on. So we had a very, very difficult time going into unfamiliar environments when we were doing this before. That's why we went with the 100% endpoint solution. PS Hunt is completely endpoint because I don't have to rely on them having the right equipment on the gateway. I don't have to rely on them having the right retention of data in a big bucket or store. And then the last one is malware analysis. When you do find something, you need to be able to pick it apart and figure out what it is, especially if it's something that antivirus says is clean. Like we're gonna be able to find things with PS Hunt that look out of place, shouldn't be there, and how do you know when McAfee says it's great? You know, they say a lot of things are great. How do you know that's still bad? You need to be able to have those tools in your tool bag. So again, this data-centric versus what we do is endpoint validation. That's what our commercial product does. That's what PS Hunt does. Validate what's running, what's triggered to run, and any manipulation of that system. So the project's called PS Hunt. I was actually meaning to get this out last week on GitHub. I ended up posting it about 30 minutes ago.
Yes.
It is on the InfoSite repo, so if you look at InfoSite GitHub, you should be able to download it. I'm actually going to blow it away after this thing because I accidentally uploaded my API key for VirusTotal, so please don't abuse that. The one you download won't have it, so you won't be able to use VirusTotal, but you can find it in the history. It is a version 0.7, so if it errors out on your system, don't blame me, it's not 1.0 yet. It's still being worked on. It's probably got another week or two work before it's fully done. I ended up looking at the project we had and all the code we had, and like you do, does anybody code here? How many people code? You ever looked at your old code? It's awful. Like, oh, who wrote that? So that's what I did when I saw this stuff. Russ and I had just like clobbered it together and went out and started using it, and it was great and all, but you look at it and no one could possibly like put their name on that. So I had to fix a lot of stuff. Ended up breaking a few things, so most of the stuff works though. So PS Hunt, it's the components are modules, and really the reason why we did this is because it forms a framework of how you should think about hunt, how you should think about endpoint hunting. So what we did was these two things, scanners and surveys, are the two components, the main things, the meat of it, that actually do the work. Scanners, currently the project on it doesn't have any, but scanners are something that are going to look for one thing, and it's going to be completely remote. So it'll be like, get one piece of information. Thank you. And get that from 1,000 systems. It's very, very quick. Surveys is when I'm actually deploying a sophisticated collector onto each workstation or server. It's going to collect stuff and return that data to me, or I'm going to go pick up the results. So it's actually like a script or an executable that's running on the systems. Discovery tools are going to, how am I going to enumerate the network and find out what assets are out there? I have to build a target list to actually hit. So discovery tools do that for us. Utilities is all the back-end infrastructure, so it's the transports and execution of what we're going to be throwing out. It's got a few things in there as well that help us do everything, the glue of the entire framework. And then there's two analysis pieces. Survey analysis is going to be PowerShell functions that allow us to analyze the information we pulled back from those surveys and those scans. So we're going to be able to take all the data, once it's aggregated, compare it against VirusTotal, compare it against other sources of information so that we could clear out our noise and look at only the interesting stuff. And then file analysis is when we actually find something interesting and we want to pull that back. We have a sample of malware. We can actually use these tools to analyze it. So that's things like submitting it into a sandbox, or just doing some decompile the PE header, things like that. So some of that's a little bit complicated. You don't have to touch too much of that. We're going to be able to find a cool malware without that. But those tools are in there for that. So scanners, they're going to use a couple different types of queries. So we can do registry queries, WMI queries. These are protocols that Windows has available. WMI stands for Windows Management Instrumentation. And it's really built to be able to collect information on the host. So if I want to know what operating system it's running or what version, if I want to know what software versions of certain things are there, I can use WMI to do that. I can look in the registry to find out if they have a certain named pipe that everyone's using. The latest rage and malware right now is using something called named pipe. We can actually search for those. I find malware all the time by doing that. So these things are very, very simple. They're designed to be threaded out a lot. We can hit thousands of systems an hour with that. So that's designed for a large-scale sweep. We don't use those in the first sweep. What we do is we collect with surveys comprehensive information. When we find something cool, we do some malware analysis. We find a piece of information that could be searched against. We use the scanners to search the rest of the network for that. Because the surveys are a little bit harder on the systems, if we have a large network, we're going to need the scanners to go wide. Surveys, I push them down, they execute, they take however long they need. The memory scanning we have on this thing takes forever in PowerShell. So the compiled stuff we have for our commercial product is way faster. It takes seconds. With PowerShell, it takes 5 minutes. So it can take a while. The survey is going to run for about 5 to 10 minutes on each host, collect the information we need, and then we'll go and grab it again with another commandlet, or we can tell it to return to a file server or an FTP server. So if I'm hitting 1,000 hosts, I'd rather have it just return to an FTP server that I set up. That way I don't have to go reach out again, and it'll do that automatically. Some of the commands that we'll use, I actually changed the name of the command, but it's this invoke hunt remote task. It's now just called invoke hunt survey, and really it's deploying out the survey. Lets you tell what kind of survey you want to throw out. I have one called survey.ps1. It's that's the main one that's going to collect everything we need. I have one for collecting logs. So if you find a compromised system, deploy that out. It's going to collect every log file, every internet history, anything you need for forensics. And then I have a test one that just lets you test if it even works. 2 ways to actually get stuff in here. We use some sysinternals tools, which are from Microsoft. There's actually a talk by Mark Rosanovich from Microsoft talking about how you can use sysinternals tools to hunt. We've wrapped a few of his tools into this. And because they're bigger, my scripts are about 50 kilobytes. His tools are 500 kilobytes each. So there's 2 ways we can get that down there. If I want to hit a lot of systems, I don't want my script to be gigantic, but I can use these 2 down here called convert binary to string. I can actually take his executables, shove them in my script. When I deploy them out, it's just one script. It automatically reconstitute those libraries and allow me to use them. The way that I currently do it is use invoke download file, which in my script basically pulls out, goes to Microsoft, says give me all your sysinternals tools, and drops them onto each box. So that's the most efficient way to do it, because it uses Microsoft's bandwidth and not mine. How are we going to get it actually down there? How are we going to execute it? So there's 4 different methods in Windows to get execution on a box remotely. So if I want to execute a file or execute a PowerShell script remotely, WMI is the best way to do it. It's one of the easiest ways to do it. It's called process call create, but you don't have to worry about the meat of that because it's all in the script. All you do is say what execution method you want to use, or you say auto. Each one of these has a different port and protocol that's associated with it, and some of them may be available on one network and not available on another. PowerShell remoting is the new one. This is one that's been being pushed by Microsoft to replace all other protocols. Unfortunately, everyone's really scared of it right now, so it's never enabled because there's bad people that use PowerShell against you. And the reason for that is not because PowerShell is a vulnerability, it's because it's really easy to use. So they've made it easy to use for the admin to administer their network, and hackers are lazy, so they see that too, and they say, hey, that's easy, and they use it too. They don't need it though, because they can do everything you can do with PowerShell remoting, you can do with these as well. It's just a little bit harder. These other ones, remote scheduled tasks, they have a protocol that allows you to schedule tasks remotely on your system. Administrators use it all the time. We can use it to execute our survey. And the service manager, PS exec. Most administrators have used PS exec before. We've got our own implementation that is in there. I didn't write it all, but it's pretty good, neat, and allows you to set up a service and execute whatever you want. So just set it to auto and it automatically uses the right one. But the reason I bring it up is because sometimes on your network you don't have access to all the ports and ports that you need. So when we're doing discovery and trying to find out what assets are on our network, when you go home or use this on your laptop, you won't need much of this because it's going to be local. But if you're doing it remotely, you're usually going to have firewalls in the way. So using discovery tools, testing TCP ports to see if they're open or not, is how you're going to be able to find out if your target list is even valid or not. Do you need to open up ports? Can you hit those systems you want to hit from inside the area you are? If you're trying to hit your web servers, for instance, web servers are in something called the DMZ, demilitarized zone. So it's in a different network that's protected. You need to be inside that network. If you try to enumerate them and these things come up cold, it means you're on the wrong network. So these help. All of these ports, again, they're here. I have this online so you can see it later, but the discovery tools basically pick out if the ports are open for WMI, then you can use WMI. And that's what our auto switch actually does, is look at which ones are open and uses the ones that are open. Our host survey. So this is the survey.ps1 I talked about, one of our main surveys. It's going to collect comprehensive information on the host. It's going to collect what's running on it, active processes, loaded drivers and modules, floating or injected modules. This is currently the way most malware works. So if you are on your browser and you go to a bad website, the biggest vector of getting you infected is they are going to find out that you're running the wrong version of Internet Explorer, or you're just running Internet Explorer in general, and they're going to inject something into your browser, and it shouldn't be there. It's usually a picture, something. They're going to take advantage of some kind of vulnerability that they know about in that browser. They're going to execute that, and this is going to be inside your Internet Explorer. So your antivirus will not see these. Antivirus can't see things that are inside a legitimate process. There's a couple that can now, called next-gen antiviruses, but for the most part, it's going to be missed, because when antivirus scans your system, it scans your active processes. It's going to see Internet Explorer and say that's good. What it doesn't know is that there's actual extra bits and stuff in your in memory. So that's where most of these live, and so we need to be able to find those. We're looking at any connections. We're looking at anything triggered to run. That's the other thing. If you're only looking at the activity of your system, what about that guy who's not currently active? When we're trained on how to attack people, I've done a lot of training on it, a lot of pen tests, where I'll get in and I'll be active on one system, enumerating your network, stealing your stuff, but I know because I'm active, I might get caught by that incident responder or that people monitoring. So in order to maintain access to that network, I put another implant on another box, maybe a printer. That implant's designed to call me back in a week. So I can do whatever I want. I can muck around on your network. If I get caught, you kick me out. In about a week, I'm going to get called back and saying, hey, would you like to connect to your network again? Because I've left that there. It's dormant. It's not active, so it's not in the active processes. It's somewhere triggered to run. So we're looking for any triggers. If it's referenced to be run in the future or on some kind of trigger, I want to know about it. We're looking at counts and some key event logs. So almost every command that we run has some kind of equivalent in PowerShell already. Unfortunately, it's not designed for security. It's not designed for forensics. It's not designed to find things that are bad. So it'll tell us that something's there. So what we've done is there's a command called git process in PowerShell already. What we've done is taken that, grabbed all the information from WMI on all the active processes, grabbed all the modules that are loaded in there. We get hashes on everything. So we've got a cryptographic hash of everything loaded in this. I'm using a sysinternals tool called SigCheck, which is going to check the digital signature on every executable in your system. And then we're also getting the owner. In a larger network, I want to know who's running those executables. So if I find something bad, it's being run by Joe down in IT, Joe's account is probably compromised, or maybe he put that there. I don't know. Insider threat. So this is basically just adding this additional information that we need to do forensics or to do hunt. What ends up being found here is we now have pretty comprehensive information. And I got a slide on here later, actually next, which will show you a bad executable. So this is a good one. This is just my Viper VPN service. But as you can see, it names the company, it names the product, gives you quite a bit of information. I can even tell if it's encrypted or not. You know, my entropy right here, if it's below 7, it's not encrypted. If it's above 7, it probably is. Don't worry about the math on that, just it's 7. So persistence mechanisms. So here's one that's triggered to run in the future. This is a really benign file called Free Online Games. It's in my malware samples folder. Probably good. But what I did was I looked at all of my auto runs. I checked for the ones that were unsigned and that virus total said were either unknown or bad. In this case, this one came back status unknown from virus total. But what's interesting about it is virus total's never seen it, but it's in my run key. So this is the key. This is a registry key, and What that specific key does is every time I log into the system, it runs that executable. Anybody who logs into my system is going to run that executable. So I look at this thing. I know it's going to run every time. Should it run? Why is it running? Who put that there? That's what I'm interested in. What's interesting is because I'm gathering all this additional information that hacker didn't know about. He didn't know I was collecting this information. This is usually like an internal name. This is what his compiler is going to say. This is the name of the file that I'm exporting from the compiler. Usually when a hacker is attacking me and puts his own virus on there, he's actually going to rename that file to something benign. He's going to rename it to something that is already on my system, just put it in a different folder. When I see a mismatch between what he compiled it at and what it actually is, that's another sign. So these are just some techniques that we can use to find things. But because he left out the publisher and the product and the version, there's no company here. Either this is a really bad programmer and a really junk piece of software I shouldn't have on my system anyway, or they didn't really care because it's not a real company. It's not a real application. So this is actually a piece of malware that we generated. So the way that we get persistence mechanisms, that's actually sysinternals auto runs. You can download that from Microsoft. It'll pull up all your things that are running. When you first run this application, you're going to be very surprised at how many things actually just auto start randomly in your systems. There's a lot, and there's a lot of places they can run from. There's triggers in the registry that will trigger every time you log in. There's triggers that will trigger every time you start up Internet Explorer. There's triggers that will start when you click certain places on or files. Just clicking will do that. So sysinternals has a bunch of them. It's one of the biggest repositories of open source known auto runs. That is not comprehensive. There's a lot more. There's a lot of ways to get execution on a box to run automatically. So for now, this is the best open source one. We've gone a lot deeper into research on how else you can do that for our commercial product. So this is the coolest part. This is the part that the other stuff sysinternals tools can help you with. There is currently nothing in the open source world that I know of that can do a highly accurate scan of your system for memory resident malware. The techniques are already out there, so we didn't invent this stuff. This stuff is all in like academic journals. It's in people's research. There's other online projects. There's a program called Volatility that allows you to do memory forensics. So this stuff isn't brand new. It's just, it's been years and there's still no open source tool or widely known way of finding memory resident malware. And it's been a problem for a long time. So we've got it. We've got one implementation that finds about 99% of the memory resident malware. So I'm using a project by Matt Graber, who is he created a program called PowerSploit. So he is the red side to my blue side. So he built that to be able to access native API calls in the Windows. It lets you get to the very bottom of the operating system. So we're accessing memory directly. So what we're doing with this is I'm looking through all of the memory in the system, and I'm looking for unprotected memory regions. So most applications, like legitimate applications, will have good coding practices and they'll protect their code, or they'll have safe coding practices where they say that part's not supposed to be executable because I don't want them to be executable. It's just read. I can read that memory. But what they've done here is when people inject into other processes, they're making completely unprotected memory. I can read, I can execute, I can write into it, I can do whatever I want to that. And then they put their module in there, or they put their malware in there. So we walk all of the memory in the system and look for the signs of that. And what ends up coming out is this. So I've got CyberGate running. CyberGate is a piece of malware that injects into Explorer. I have it set to inject into Explorer. I can inject into anything I want. But it's running. It's its own process. I've also told it to inject into Explorer. So that's what you see right here. Under these process IDs, across multiple systems. So each system, there's 3 systems in my scan here. All 3 of them have an Explorer injection. And the key thing here is that this thing that says page execute read write, that is the designation in Windows that says it's completely unprotected. And that thing that says PE is the field. If it's true, it means there's a portable executable in there. A portable executable should not be in unprotected memory. And across the board, every piece of malware I've ever come across, except for like 2, don't protect their memory. Of course, after I open source this, they probably will start. But even then, it's actually fairly difficult for them to do it correctly because they're going around the operating system to do this. If they were using Microsoft's libraries, these executables would be registered and easily find. They're going around Windows to put this stuff in there, and because they're going around Windows, there's things that are going to be off. So we look for things that are off. All I'm trying to do is raise the effort level it requires them to stay hidden on a system. They will probably find a way around this. I know some ways around this, but it is significantly more difficult. So this will help a lot. Most of the malware writers out there won't be able to get around this. So how do we analyze this information? So once we've got that survey result off of each system we want to scan, we want to combine it together. I don't want to look at one host at a time. So I have one called group host objects. So the host object is basically everything we've collected on a host is collected into one file. So we're going to group them all together. We're going to normalize it. Just give me the unique processes across all the systems. If I've got 100 systems that are running Windows 7, they probably all have the same version of Internet Explorer, so I'm going to have one entry for Internet Explorer. I'm going to want to be able to update it. So I want to be able to check my file reputation lists. I want to check virus total. I want to filter out all that noise of what should be in my whitelist. So if I have a known clean system, I can create a whitelist from that and say that's my gold image. Anything deviating from that, I want to know about it. So setting the status is what that does. Initialize reputation data. I've got a folder called reputation data, and it's got a bunch of information in there, from IPs that I normally connect to files that I should see, or files that I've already queried from VirusTotal. So if I've seen it, it's in there. So every time I go and do another scan, I can check that repo there. I've got another database called the NIST database, and that is millions and millions of files that a government organization called NIST has compiled and said these are good. This is actually from manufacturers. So we're checking against all that. That loads it into memory so we can compare against it. Update host object basically goes through all of the collected files and says, is that known or not, and sets a status as either unknown, good, bad, suspicious, weird. Sets that status so that when I go to analyze this and look at them, I can filter everything out that says good and leave me with everything that says unknown and bad and act on those. Now, VirusTotal and antiviruses are going to miss some things. So the idea is, once I've filtered out that noise, and even querying VirusTotal, I'm going to find a bunch of stuff because I can only have one antivirus on my system. So if I've got AVG on my system, every time, there's malware out there that will be found on AVG, but not found on McAfee, or found on McAfee but not AVG. VirusTotal is awesome because you can query these things and see, even though it wasn't found by AVG, it was found by 3 others. So you're going to find a bunch of stuff just with that. The rest of it, say you're totally clean across the board because VirusTotal is either unknown or everything's good. I want to perform some outlier and anomaly analysis. What that really means, it sounds cool, but it's just like put this data in a spreadsheet and filter for what's weird. Like if this Internet Explorer is on 100 out of 100 systems, and I've got an Internet Explorer that's different, but only on one system out of 100, but it's the same Windows 7 box that's supposed to be coming from an image, that's weird. So that's an outlier. That's an anomaly. Let's look at that. Let's pull a copy of that back and figure out, is that really Internet Explorer or not? Once you've pulled it back and start toying at it, you'll find that it's probably not Internet Explorer. And that's how we find bad things that come up clean on everything else. So let's put it all together. What is this framework from a pictorial standpoint? So PS Hunt, we're running this on a laptop. We're running this on a server in your environment. I'm going to go ahead and scan these systems with I'm going to go out and throw up my surveys to them. It's going to run for a few minutes, collect the information I need. It's going to collect what's running, what's triggered to run, any indicators of compromise, or any indicators of manipulation. Once that stuff comes back, I'm going to aggregate it, group it up, find out if anybody's ever seen it before. I'm going to send up a hash of every process, everything triggered to run. I'm going to look up IPs and DNS. Is this something that's known as a botnet controller, for instance? And then any other indicators that I might have. There's a couple other things in there that we can search for. but we're gonna do our threat reputation database, which is stored in our local repo. We're also going to query threat intel providers. Virus total is the easiest one. A free key gets you 4 queries per minute. That ends up being about 5,000 a day. On one system, there's usually about 5,000 things. So do this once, you've baselined your entire system. As you scan more, you'll just do a few queries after that, so a couple hundred. So with the free key, you'll just have to wait like an hour to do these virus total queries. Suspicious executables. So once I've done that, and I've done a little analysis, found an outlier, found a couple outliers, I want to take those suspicious executables or suspicious things, and I want to submit them up. So let's go ahead and scan that thing that was unknown to VirusTotal. Let's give it to VirusTotal, see what they see. They have 64 different antiviruses they can run this against, and a sandbox. And then I can have some static and dynamic analysis tools in my bucket. I put a few of them into the project, but there's more. We can use PE Studio or another thing called PowerShell Arsenal. These are just tools that you can help you take apart an executable and see, is this good or bad? Or what does it do? Dynamic analysis or sandboxing is let's run it on a virtual machine just to see what it does. And there's a couple free ones. Cuckoo Sandbox is free, but you got to configure it. It's hard. Malware.com, it's free, and you don't have to configure it. It's easy. So just use that one. So how do we find bad things? Let's dig a little deeper. Active processes, modules, drivers. These are things that are running on your system. One of the big trends that we're seeing is a lot of even advanced malware. Like 10 years ago, you would always say, don't trust anything on the system because it's going to give you bad information because there's like a rootkit on there or something. In reality today, because the way malware hides on your system is weird, I look for weird things, which means if you're being weird or trying to hide, you're probably going to get caught. So if you're trying to get into an organization that has people looking for weird things, don't try to hide. Because there's enough noise in these systems today, the things that are running on your systems, the connections that Chrome, if you open up, if you've got a Mac, get a program called Little Snitch. Download that, put it on your system. It will actually tell you every connection that's being made and where it's going. And if you download Chrome, you'll have 100 every minute to random places because it does something called prefetching. It predicts where you're going to go next and then calls out and gets that stuff already so that everything becomes really fast. So there's a lot of things happening on your system. And if I just install my malware as another application and it doesn't hide, it doesn't do anything weird, I can hide in plain sight. And you probably will never see me. So a lot of things happen like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to hash everything, do signature checks, and make sure it's not in a threat intel database. Someone doesn't know about it already. That's going to clear all my known goods and known bads. Because they're hiding in plain sight, this is actually going to be pretty effective. Then we're going to stack the remaining data, and PowerShell does this for us. You can sort. You can basically sort and say, give me the least occurrences. This thing is on 100 systems out of 100. It's probably good because no hacker would hack everything unless they're using a worm, which is going away. Usually they're going to be on one system because they don't need to be everywhere. So if it's on one of 100, those are the things I'm going to look at first. And then perform static and dynamic analysis on executables that are suspicious or out of place. Digital signatures. So if you're a good vendor, you're going to digitally sign your programs. The problem is that a lot of malware, although it's not digitally signed, one of the biggest problems right now is that a lot of legitimate applications aren't signed either because vendors suck and they don't digitally sign their stuff. But it is a key indicator that we do. If it is signed, it's generally considered to be semi-safe. The problem is that a lot of sophisticated malware, they will actually sign it using a completely false signing authority. It's called a certificate authority. So a lot of malware today, especially if it's a driver-based, because you have to sign your drivers, they'll load up their CA and tell your computer to trust my signing authority. I set it up in like Ukraine to sign my malware, and your system's going to trust it. So what we try to do is let's get everything out of that trusted store, and let's compare and see if it's a real trusted store. So that's one technique that we use to find things that are maliciously signed. And of course, there is like nation state level stuff where they're hacking into another organization, stealing their signing keys and signing it as a legitimate organization. So if you've seen stories on Stuxnet from 2008, for instance, that was actually signed by a legitimate signing authority called Microsoft. So those things happen. Persistence mechanisms. We'll look through a couple different places. This one's not implemented yet. Sophisticated bootkits. Memory injection. I already talked about this, but this is how they do it. This is actually the process of process injection, process hollowing. There's a bunch of techniques. They all of them boil down to this, these steps. Because it's all doing these steps, we know exactly what to look for. So unless they're absolutely cleaning themselves up and instituting good coding practices, protecting their memory, which all takes effort, if they're not taking the effort necessary to do this stuff, which most of them aren't, we're going to be able to find them. So that's it for the presentation. Any questions? You can go back. There's a lot of stuff here. Nothing from the pen tester guys?
Well, real quick question.
Sure.
Is on the back end, it's kind of running sys internal tools.
Hmm?
I've been in some domain environments that block all those types of tools, so do you have to just make a new GPO for that? To allow
Yeah,
it to
you
run?
either have to allow it. What I'm trying to do is actually get rid of the sysinternals tools by re-implementing them completely in PowerShell. If we can do it all in PowerShell, then my file is really small. I don't need to download any other external libraries, because those things are gigantic and they do a lot of stuff. So ultimately, we want to be able to do that. I actually have code to replace the sysinternals, auto runs. I have code in there to do it. It's just not fully baked. So once we do that, we can get rid of those. But for now, it does use two. It uses a sig check and auto runs. So
Is there a demo that you can show us?
I can. One more question.
I thought I already said that you could implement some software cleaner and it could call you back. Is that what I heard correctly?
Yeah, so I've got two ways to get that survey back. So I've got embedded in it a return address. So when I set it up, I can either have it, when I deploy that survey, I'm not maintaining a connection. Because it's going to take 10 minutes, and I may have 1,000 systems, I just throw it out to all of them, execute them, and they run for however long they need to run. When they're done, they drop their the results into an XML file on disk in the temp folder, and I can go back and pick that up. That's a normal way to do it. But if I want it just to return to me automatically, so I don't have to go out and pick it up again, because those systems might be laptops and they'd be off the network by the time it's done. So another way that we have implemented is I've got code in there that you just say, I want it to not drop to disk. I want it to send it to a web server that I've got hosted, or I send it to an FTP server. And it'll take that XML file and automatically pop it up into that FTP server or that web server. And then I can go collect it, the results. So those are the two ways that it'll call back. Any other questions? Cool. So I don't want to waste 10 minutes on this, but I'll show you a couple things that we do.
Is something that I'll be able to do so I can show on the stream?
Maybe. Yes. Do you have it downloaded?
Yeah.
Go ahead and download it. There's a file in there. So if you just want to follow along with me, let's define a variable and say equals, and type in import -CLI XML. And I've got a scan that's already been completed. So just go into surveys, and it should be survey results.xml. Let me make this bigger.
Okay, surveys results.
And it should be survey results. That one.
Okay.
Go ahead and click that. So this is a survey file that I've already run on my local system. If you just hit that variable, it shows you all the information in there. And what's important here is not the junk on the right, it's junk on the left. These are you've got your IP addresses, your host name, the date I processed this, and then each of these I can look at individually. So I can look at the process list, I can look at the module list, I can look at the auto runs. So let's go ahead and look at my process list for now. So we're going to do a.process_list. And it'll list them all out, but basically it just lists them one at a time. You can format these different ways. You can filter against anything. When you get proficient with PowerShell, the filtering and the way you do like sorting, things like that, all those things, when you learn those techniques, can be used against this. So if you're going to use PS Hunt, it's really optimal to learn PowerShell, learn piping, learn the filters that are in it, so that I can say, give me everything. For instance, let's look at entropy higher than 7. If I were to do that a.process_list again, and then I say pipe it into a where command with a squiggly bracket. So do where, and then there's a squiggly. Take that one, squiggly brackets, and then $_ dot entropy. And then space dash GT for greater than, and then 7, and then complete the bracket. You can put a bunch of these in here, but what ends up coming out is a couple of them, a lot less. I'm going to pipe it into a formatter table called ft format table -auto to size it. So I'll pipe it in there. And that gives me my list, so I can just look at the executables that have a high enough entropy that they're probably encrypted. And so what ends up happening is I have, Spotify, Skype, Drive. The things that are encrypted are packed, usually because if it's a legitimate application, it's the reason we would do that is because we're trying to protect their intellectual property. If it's a virus, they're trying to hide what they're doing. So there are legitimate applications that are packed and encrypted. Usually it's DRM kind of stuff, rights management. The difference is legitimate applications are easy to research. So if it's from Google, every piece of information and then executable, I'm going to be able to reference. I'm going to be able to take the hash. I'm going to be able to Google it, and Google's going to say, yeah, that's mine. If it's not a legit vendor, Google's going to come up with nothing, or it's going to come up with some kind of forensics report that Sophos did that says this thing's totally bad. So Google's your friend here. So if I were to, I have the entire command line of how it ran, its creation date, a couple other aspects here. Let's go ahead and take that thing again, and let's assign it to another variable. So b equals that last thing you ran. Okay. So now I can just manipulate b. If I want to know what fields it has, let's just look at the first object. So I'm going to square bracket 0. Oh, sorry. My last command, take that formatter off. That's not going to work. So again, these are the filters, the where things. This is all things that you learn in PowerShell. Once you learn it, you can do it really. You can manipulate this thing very well. What I'm going to have uploaded probably within about 2 weeks is a survey viewer, and it does all the formatting for you. So it'll filter out all of the things that you don't want to see. It'll give you the things that are most important up front, and it will actually color code them. So the object viewer, you don't have to learn any of this junk. You can just say, hey, give me the object viewer with your standard defaults, and it'll print out and filter out all the things you don't need to see. The things that are like Chrome, we don't want to see that. It's legit. Just give me the things that are outliers, weird, and coming out bad on VirusTotal. So the object viewer will be a new one that will come out in the next 2 weeks. But for now, we can manipulate these and find out anything we want. The cool thing about this, once you learn this, is you can build your own viewers. and you can look for things that you want to see. So if you want to compare internal names to current names, that could be something that you do, and that might find some stuff. Or if you've got a compromised account you know is compromised, or you got a guy in my organization that I know is disgruntled, let's scan the entire environment, filter for everything that he's running across the board. If that guy is running more stuff than just his system, he's got things running on other systems in other countries maybe, that could be a sign that something's going on. For now, we filtered it. We've looked at all this stuff. We can, some of this information is extraneous, it's not that useful. Biggest thing is, I can take these MD5s and these hashes. So these are all our hashes, cryptographic signatures of that file. And if I take this thing that's supposed to be viscosity, and I Google it, and I need internet to Google, apparently.
Oh man, CyberDef 5G.
Okay.
And then this might take a while, but it's right there.
Yeah, I'm gonna tether.
So any questions while he's tethering? Such as, how do you tether?
When you travel a lot, you get your 10 gigabit, package that gives you unlimited. I'm on this a lot. All right, so that one's not known. Some of them are. So say Spotify.exe, someone's got to see that one. Usually, someone knows about it. Maybe no one uses MD5 anymore. Okay. Oh yeah, because they're unknown. These are status unknown. Generally, if they're anything other than unknown, someone's have seen it. So let's take that process list again, and let's say status, where status equals, not equal to, unknown. So we've got 52 things that are not unknown.
What was the command to do that?
Command is, so a.process list where $_ in PowerShell, $_ is just the name of the current variable. So when you pipe things, so if I pipe this process list in, I'm piping in like 100 things in here. It's going to do that operation on every line at a time, and $_ happens to be the current line. So it just means that object, the current one I'm on, dot status equals not equal to unknown. I'll put that in my B variable. And let's go ahead. This one says good, right? So this is my synaptics, that's my mouse. So if I look for that, one of these hashes, what the? Come on, Google. There it is. So the MD5 was known. There's a couple things in here. All sorts of websites that have seen this before. So you can find all these websites that have analyzed these things before. People have said it's either good or bad. Antiviruses say it's safe. People are always seeing stuff on their systems and saying, is this good? Should this be on my system? There's websites all over the place that say, yes, I've analyzed it, I've looked at it. Some of them are trusted, some of them are not. But in this case, should say it's from the Synaptics organization, but it looks like this is a actual driver, or this is an executable that's in other applications as well. Let's look at something else. Here's a Microsoft file. Bleepingcomputer.com. It's one that's pretty cool. Someone just submitted a bunch of them. So there's information out there. Usually, if you find something squirrely, you don't have to do file analysis. You can just Google the hash, usually the MD5 or the SHA-1, and someone out there has done some analysis on it. If it's a known piece of malware, usually you can find someone's done it on it. If it's completely unknown, you'll probably see nothing like we did. But a lot of times, Google is a really great resource. Someone's done some analysis on it. There's a few times when I've come across executables that some other forensics firm has done a recent thing on. I was doing an incident response for an insurance company. They got crypto locked, and they wanted to know, is this decryptable? Can I get my stuff back? Do I have to pay the ransom? So I went in, found the malware, hashed it, searched for that hash, and I found out that according to every report, everyone who's ever tried to pay these people for that specific piece of malware, no one's ever gotten their files back. So don't pay the ransom, and let's figure out when the ground zero hit. The way I did that was I used PowerShell, enumerated all the files that were encrypted, and looked at their creation date or modified dates, and picked out that, oh, this thing started at 10 a.m. and had been encrypting files for a day over the weekend. So we went back to the original file that was encrypted, looked at when that executable actually landed on the system that started it, and we were able to find a ground zero date. So I said, restore from backup prior to this date, and you'll be fine. You'll have lost these files that were modified after this date. I did all that with PowerShell. So we didn't need any other tools. I didn't need to bring my forensics tools. I just used PowerShell to do that, which was pretty cool. So I drink the Kool-Aid. I drink the Microsoft Kool-Aid. I love PowerShell. If you guys use Mac or anything else, or Linux, you're probably used to a command line that's all very textual based. The cool thing about PowerShell is it's object based. So this is a PowerShell object. When I pipe it, when I do things with it, I'm interacting with an object. And this object has these fields and these lists and these arrays, and I can manipulate them pretty cool, very easily once I learn the techniques. So that's the cool thing about PowerShell. I think every command line should be object oriented, but for now, just Windows has that, and that's what I stick to. So pretty soon, the really cool stuff will be when I have that object viewer and it color codes this stuff for you. It won't look like a mess of things on the screen. So for now, if you're not used to seeing command line applications, it does look like a mess on the screen. This is how I viewed things that were command line before I learned them. But the viewer should make it pretty cool. You guys want to see like our actual commercial product and what it looks like?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So think of these concepts and think of like, shit, I don't want to learn PowerShell. That looks like a lot of work. What we found out, and this is a big thing about innovation. So you innovate to do something new and weird and crazy. I'm all about that, but there's something I'm more about, and this came from experience. When I tell people about this new cool thing we do that finds memory resident malware, most people respond with, how many clicks is that going to take for me? Like, where's the easy button? So we set out to create the easy button because there's so many people that are compromised right now, and a lot of times I do incident response and I keep finding malware that, like, I wouldn't say anybody could find, but if you look for it, you find it. And so it's not super sophisticated. It's not Russians lurking around in your system. It's some common ass stuff that if you just looked at your process list, you know that that's not supposed to be there. And so we wanted to be able to give the power to do that. So we built a product to be able to do compromise assessments and hunt in a network to be able to find malware. You can actually go to demo.infosite.com. It should be HTTPS. It won't auto redirect.
Chris, you want me to show them just to prove how easy it is?
No, this will be ugly.
All right, what's the username and password?
So you're going to use demo, and then password is pulse, all lowercase. you can log into it. So again, the same thing. When you enumerate the network, we had a query based on an IP range, a custom list. I can put names of systems and IP addresses, a domain name. I can ask the domain controller for all the assets that are registered in the network. And if I want, if it's not on the domain or it's on a different domain than I'm currently on, I can put in password, username and password to access those systems. Since we don't have code running on every box in the network already, we've got to reach out to them and we've got to be able to authenticate, which means I need a username and password. So here, what we've done is we've enumerated these boxes. There's a couple Windows boxes. There's a couple Linux boxes. Yeah. So some Linux systems. These protocols here, there's 4 boxes here, and that basically tells me, remember that list of ways to execute and actually get on those systems that I showed you? Each one of these boxes represents one of those. And so if we have one of these lit up, that's all you got to know. You don't have to know what PowerShell remoting and WMI is. All you got to know is I got a light on one of these things. So if I've got a light for these Linux systems, I can use SSH. For the Windows systems, I can use WMI or scheduled tasks. PowerShell remoting if it was enabled. These are accessible systems. My inaccessible ones, they're alive because I got a light here, but I don't know much about them, and my credentials don't work. So these are something. I can go find them, but for now, let's just filter down to my accessible systems, hit apply. Now we've got a list of 24 systems out of the 270 I tried to enumerate. I tried to scan a big wide swath of systems. I came back with 24 live and accessible. I'm going to go ahead and scan them. I'm pulling back some of the same information I talked about, a little bit more, but we're collecting modules, drivers, we're doing memory scans. There's a little bit more sophistication here. Unlike the PowerShell scripts, we're actually ripping stuff out of memory and sending it up to our cloud to get analyzed, because memory resident malware can be squirrely, so we apply all the analytics we have in our cloud to do that. We're collecting things like hooks, which are manipulation of the actual operating system, being able to analyze those as well. So those are the things that we're collecting. Once we've scanned it, go to our Analyze tab, and you come out with either a banner that says you're totally hosed, like this one, because this network is hosed. We put a lot of malware in there. Or it'll say clean, or it will say no known threats detected. If you're relying on complete automation and you don't want to do any analysis, and this thing comes up without a compromise, it'll say no known threats detected. If you've gone through and looked at all the things that we flagged for you that didn't come up on the automation as bad, but have some squirrely stuff that acts like malware, it's got some connections to places, we flag those things. They're not malicious by anybody's reasoning, but they do have the capability to do either networking, remote access. They're squirrely, so we put a suspicious tag on them. So then an analyst can come in here. I can automatically just scan with no effort whatsoever, click a few things, pop out a report that says I'm totally hosed. Or I could come in here and say, let's continue to find more. I'm going to go to my process list. Like I did with the PowerShell scripts, I said, give me the process list and filter it. We do that for you here. So what we've done is said, hey, these things are bad because someone says they're bad. I've scanned it with multiple antivirus engines. I've queried threat intel sources. And we've got subscriptions that cost a lot of money that give us a repository of data to query against. The things that come up suspicious is there is no threat intel match. There is no antivirus that says this is bad, but it's still kind of weird. It acts like malware. It smells like malware. It might be malware. But we're not going to flag it because there's no confirmation unless you look at it. So in this case, if I click on one of these, I can get a lot of cool information out of it. My antivirus summary tells me what every antivirus here says it is. ClamAV says it's an online games Trojan. Bitdefender calls it a Hermopolis, whatever that thing says. We white box all of our scoring, so this isn't a super secret algorithm or anything like that. So we basically tell you, is it on our local whitelist? Is it malicious based on the AV scan data? Here's my scoring and why I scored it that way. Is it suspicious or unknown? If it's Linux, did it come from a package manager? And does the package manager say that that's actually my executable that I issued out? We're checking package managers. We're checking a lot of other sources. If I go to advanced analysis, all those things where I said file analysis, where you can do static and dynamic analysis, we automatically do that to anything you submit to us. So we'll do that static and dynamic analysis and give you all that data into the application. We've got a machine learning score that comes up as a bell curve between -1 and 1. It can go beyond. If it goes beyond, it's probably pretty bad. But 1 being very, very close to these million good files that we tested, and -1 is very, very close to these remote access tools and backdoors and Trojans. We've got a separate sandbox score. Some malware doesn't run in a sandbox, so we separated it, because sometimes it comes up as a nice little goose egg because it just failed. But it gives you a bunch of signatures on what this thing is doing. Individually, they don't say it's malware, but together, they might. And give you all the ability to look at any files it touched, any network connections it made, things like that. Memory injections. So this process here, Firefox, totally clean across the board, but it's suspicious based on some behavior, and it's not digitally signed. So those were two weird things. Firefox is usually signed. Go to advanced analysis. My Synapse score is going up crazy. Entropy is pretty low, so it's blue, which means I can actually analyze this pretty easily. I can go into the strings. I can look at this file pretty easily. Sandbox score, nothing really interesting there, but enough information here that's weird. I can actually download a copy of that. I can submit that to someone who knows what they're doing, or I can just come in here and look at some other things. So one of the reasons this comes up bad, this is actually a Trojanized version of Firefox. So Firefox, the legitimate Firefox, is running, but it's been Trojanized. There's a stub that we've connected with it, which injects into itself. And so it is Firefox. It comes up on your screen as Firefox, but it's actually connecting to my server in the background. And we know that because when we go into memory and look at Firefox, I've actually got memory injection in Firefox, and I've ripped that code out and analyzed it individually. And that code comes up as bad against multiple antivirus engines. When I look at advanced analysis, it's coming across pretty bad. I can actually rip it out of memory and run it and see what it does. And I can actually download a copy of that. There's no other product on the market that does that. Allows you to actually rip stuff out of memory. So these are all techniques that originally spawned out of the PowerShell, the PS Hunt framework. But we wanted to make it clickable and easy so people can do it. And then we added some extra cool stuff in there. So the whole idea is to be able to go out, scan a network, and within one day, give them a report that says you're either hosed or you're not. So what's cool about it is you can go into unfamiliar networks you've never seen before, scan them, come out with a report. We do a lot of mergers and acquisitions, for instance. We do due diligence for third parties. So organizations will say, I want to do business with them, or I want to buy that other bank. I don't know if they're clean or not. I don't know if their intellectual property is safe. And we'll go in, scan the network, and tell them that it is or isn't, from what we can see. So that's the whole point of that. We have some experimental stuff, like being able to map out, what connections are happening between what hosts. But all of it ends in a report that basically says we scanned 91% of your systems that we tried to scan. Came up with 5 hosts that were compromised, 2 accounts, and a couple compromised files. The next thing we're working on is actually being able to remediate. So right now, if this account, for instance, this InfoSite account, which is compromised because it's running my free online games in Cybergate, I come out here and actually disable that account and remediate it. And we're going to have remediation across the board for memory resident malware and files, things like that. Right now, we just have disabling the host and disabling the accounts for remediation, just to stem the damage. But otherwise, most of this, when you find something, it goes into an incident response where you're locking down your network and figuring out what happened, doing some forensics.
So with that remediation, will it just cut it off from the network until they bring it into IT or whatever?
Yeah, so ours is disable the account, disable the host, kick it off the network, and then an admin has to put it back on. Or that's when forensics gets out there, grabs the hard drives.
So there's nothing, when it turns it off, it can't turn itself back on tomorrow?
When we disable it?
Yeah.
No, you have to have administrator rights to add yourself back to the domain. Now, if they were an admin, had they stolen admin creds, they probably could. But that's why we disable the accounts too. So we disable the accounts that are compromised, that are associated with that system, and then we could do our incident response. We don't have to be pants on fire because we've taken out the accounts.
Do you offer this as a service, or someone can buy this and they can run it themselves weekly?
So we sell this to, we have an enterprise license that we sell to enterprises and big and companies, usually about 500 employees or more, 100 employees or more, probably, most of the organizations we engage with. And then we also sell a professional license for service providers and consultants. So if they want to go out and do an assessment on another company, we give them a license to use for that company, either one time or a subscription basis, so they have it in their toolkit. And then we also do it through us, either us or our partners can go out and do it a one-time assessments for a service, for a fee. So while we were building the product, we were doing a lot of services. That's how we were actually funding the company. We have investors, but we were spending a lot of money, so we were also doing services.
How do you prevent your implant or whatever from showing up as malware itself?
It depends on what antivirus is out there. So Trend Micro flags us, for instance. A couple others do too. Mostly because we're scanning internal memory, and that looks squirrely to some people. It should. It's scary that it doesn't more. You know, McAfee's like, yeah, you're cool. You can scan any memory you want. But yeah, Trend Micro, for instance, we had an engagement where we deployed it, and they got, I think they had like 300 virus alerts while we were doing our scan. We should probably, we made a standard operating procedure to scan one host first, just to see if that happens. That's probably a good practice. But you just have to whitelist it on their, that's why larger organizations have a managed antivirus usually, so you can set it in one place and it'll propagate out as a whitelisted application or a whitelisted cache that can run. So that's a standard thing we do in an assessment. It's just whitelist the things that we're going to be deploying. You know, if you're doing a deny by default, then here's the things you need to allow. Sorry.
It's all good. Sorry, streamers. YouTubers.
So, yeah, so basically just whitelist it. And we, you know, actually one of them, we had Kaspersky flagged us, and our CTO writes malware. And that's actually how most of the malware that we have in our demo environment is stuff that he made. He makes stuff that completely looks clean, and he spends about an hour doing that. So this one that's suspicious is clean across the board because he made it so. And here's the scary thing. In my training I did on the pen testing side, I went through a 6-week training course on how to hack. And my module on antivirus evasion was only 2 hours long, and then we graduated. Because we were like, you're done, that's all you need. What's cool about this one is, so I got a string signature for web activity, and that means I've got some kind of address in there. Anybody know what that is? That's a Bitcoin miner. So it's a Bitcoin wallet. So he built a Bitcoin miner that hides itself and sends him Bitcoins. So that's just an example. He builds malware. So last time Kaspersky found us, he issued a patch within the same hour, and it got past Kaspersky. That's why we built this stuff, because malware writers do that. When they start getting caught by antivirus, they just do a patch, and suddenly they're not caught anymore. Because we're submitting to VirusTotal, they can too. So when they build a piece of malware, they submit it to VirusTotal, and it goes, oh yeah, that's clean. If it's clean, I can use it. And if I'm researching your organization, attacking your organization, and I go onto monster.com, and you're looking for McAfee administrators, you probably use McAfee. And if I deploy something, I'm just going to download McAfee, make sure my malware gets past McAfee, and suddenly I've got malware that you can't detect. That's why you got to hunt. That's why you got to look for these things, because organized hackers do that.
So the tool's analyzing all of these systems and is sending that back to whatever threat feed you're using.
Mm-hmm.
When something comes back as unknown, are you letting people analyze that and actually sending information back to the community?
Yes. So in certain cases, so we've got a fully on-prem version, which is packaged and doesn't submit to the internet and send it everywhere. That's for like government customers that want that, and large organizations that just don't like anybody else. But normally, our traditional licenses, if you submit it to our cloud and it's analyzed in our sandbox against our array of analyzers, we are also submitting that to the community. It's called the Antivirus Alliance. And that actually happens. If your malware is burned as a hacker, and it's burned by Sophos or Kaspersky or anybody else, they're part of an antivirus alliance that Microsoft put together, which means those samples get deployed out everywhere, which means 50 different companies get a crack at looking at your malware. Now, there's a lot of malware that gets submitted this way, so everyone shares immediately, and whoever has bandwidth to analyze that thing gets to do the report. The latest campaign against Russia in Eastern Bloc, I forgot what the thing was called, REMSEC or something like that. There's a report that just came out. Both Symantec and Kaspersky were racing to have the report come out, and they both issued it within the same day, about 8 hours apart. Symantec was first, and then Kaspersky came out with a much better report. But they basically both, someone found it, submitted it, and they did a report on it, and found a campaign that was gigantic against Russia and Eastern Bloc. And there's speculation in the world that says that we are currently in a cyber war with Russia because they hacked the DNC and they hacked everybody else that we know. So are we hacking back? This campaign suggests that we are. So I don't know if it is or not, but the reports suggest that. Cool. Anything online?
Nothing yet.
Cool. Well, that's all I have for my presentation.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this was a great presentation, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Would you like to see more of this?
Yeah.
Help me find those people. If you know speakers out there that will be also very interesting, that offer a lot, and also want to talk about their startups or their ideas, please send them over to me. You can reach me at cyberdefdojo@gmail.com or send me a message over meetup.com. So once again, thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much, Bria Woods. And we'll see you guys next month. And don't forget the Security Engagement Series, October 18th. Talking about ransomware. It'll be a really great event. And also the refreshments from Costco. So make sure to thank Costco next time you're there. Tell them that you love them. That's going to be at the Geekdom Event Center.
Okay, that'll be on Meetup.
It will be on Meetup. I'll be sure to put it out there. There's also going to be an Eventbrite link that I'll put on there as well. Cool. Thank you guys so much for coming, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Any comments about the
Yeah.
Hey Chris, I want to say hi. It's good to see you. Yeah, it's good. Hey, for the SCAs, I'm planning training. So if there's something you want to do, you can sell your product, but you can offer training.
you.